I'm Jon-Erik Kellso, and I'd like to talk to you about the Plunger Mute in use with the trumpet. Here's a Plunger Mute that I got at the hardware store, and that's where I recommend you get yours. This is a nice size for the trumpet. The one I use most of the time is actually this one, which is a little bit smaller. I like this Plunger Mute when I'm using it by itself rather than with a Pixie Mute, and I'll show you the difference. So here's a Plunger Mute. It has the hole cut out in here. I put some coins in there just to add a little bit of a buzziness, but cutting the hole out here helps the intonation and helps you from changing the note. It'll actually change the note if you don't do that when you're playing. I'll show you what I mean. That's with it all the way closed. Just to give you an idea of that sound. If you don't cut out the hole, it can be problematic. It can actually change the pitch. But if you're using it with the Pixie Mute, which is the way the early jazz guys used the plunger most of the time, I like this one without the hole cut out, and that sounds like this. One of the things that the early jazz players liked to do was they were basically trying to imitate a voice when they were using the Plunger Mute. And then later on, singers tried to imitate the instrumentalists who were using the plunger, who were trying to sound like the singers. It's a vocal quality that's what's exciting and interesting about the plunger. I'll show you some of the effects you can get with the plunger with a little Pixie Mute. So you can get a little laughing sound, you can get a talking sound. Or you can even get like a baby crying kind of sound. Those kind of sounds like that. I mentioned the Pixie Mute. Now the one that I like to use is kind of hard to find. I found mine on eBay, and you can find, actually I found this one in a store called Dillon's in New Jersey. And I had to ask if they had any old mutes, and they went into the back and brought out a box of old mutes, and that's how I found this one. But most of the mutes that I have here I found on eBay or in an antique store, or if you know an old trumpet player who's not so interested in his old mutes anymore. The Pixie Mutes that you can find today that are pretty good, that are new, are made by Stone Lined, and they're the metal ones that are red and white, and you can find those in a good music store, or again, some kind of online music store. And this one I like a lot because you can actually use it as a straight mute. Here's another one just like that. You can use it as kind of a funky straight mute and put it all the way in. And then if you use that with the plunger, again, you get these different kind of sounds. Early on in jazz, King Oliver was really the first trumpet player, cornet player, known for getting these kind of wah-wah effects. And what he did, he used the granddaddy of the Pixie Mute, which was a con practice mute. They actually called them practice mutes back in those early days. And they included it in the case along with your horn when you bought the horn. It's kind of like that other Pixie, whereas you can use it as a straight mute. What he would do is he'd hold it, sort of cup it in his hand, and use his hand as the plunger to do the wah-wah effects. It's hard to do with a bigger bell like this one. His horn was a cornet that had a smaller bell, and maybe he had bigger hands than I. So that's one of the early techniques of how to use the Pixie and the plunger. And then also the other early jazz legend that really put the plunger on the map, so to speak, was Bubba Miley. And he was in Duke Ellington's earliest bands. And he did use a plunger and a Pixie Mute, and he got a sound something like this. That was Duke Ellington's first theme before Take the A Train in East St. Louis, Toodaloo. Replacing Bubba Miley when he left the band was another great trumpet player, Cootie Williams, who also played with Duke Ellington's orchestra. And he wasn't really a plunger player until he got into the Ellington band, but that was sort of the job that was given to him. You've got to do the plunger stuff. So he came up with his own way of doing it, and it sounded a little subtler, just a little different, and wonderful, another wonderful plunger player. My favorite, actually. I'll try to demonstrate his style as best I can. That was Echoes of Harlem or Cootie's Concerto. There was two different songs, Concerto for Cootie and Cootie's Concerto. I think that's Cootie's Concerto. And he's a great player to listen to to get you excited about the plunger and give you some ideas. He's definitely my favorite. Other trumpet players of that time that were great plunger players include Jabo Smith, another favorite of mine. He was a very hot player, and he was sort of another record label's competition to Louis Armstrong. They were trying to compete with Louis, and they got Jabo on their label. Well, that was a bit of an introduction for you on the Plunger Mute and some of the great plunger players to listen to for inspiration, and I hope you have as much fun with that as I do.